He hadn't eaten in 3 days. The boy's name was Caleb Rowe. 9 years old. White. Thin as paper. So quiet the world had learned to look right through him. He stood outside Mason Street Diner on a Tuesday afternoon, hands shoved deep in pockets that had nothing inside them. His jeans hung loose around his waist. His t-shirt, once white, now gray, clung to ribs that pressed against fabric like prison bars. Caleb wasn't begging. He was just waiting. Waiting for the kitchen door to swing open. Waiting for the smell of fried catfish and cornbread to drift out into the alley. Waiting for someone to toss scraps into the dumpster so he could eat without being seen. His mother had disappeared 4 months ago. One morning she was there, humming while she brushed his hair. By evening, she was gone. No note. No goodbye. Just an empty apartment and a neighbor who wouldn't look him in the eye. His father? Caleb didn't remember much. A uniform. A voice that yelled. A funeral he wasn't allowed to attend. Now it was just him. And hunger. The kind that gnawed. The kind that made you dizzy when you stood too fast. The kind that turned every smell into a knife. He pressed his back against the brick wall, trying to disappear into the shadows. That's when he saw her. A little black girl with braids tied back with a faded blue ribbon. She couldn't have been more than 8. She wore a flour-dusted apron that dragged near her ankles and shoes 2 sizes too big. She pushed through the diner's back door, balancing a plate in both hands. Caleb's stomach twisted. She sat on the concrete step, alone, and unwrapped a sandwich. White bread. A thin slice of ham. Nothing fancy. But to Caleb, it looked like a feast. He turned away. Tried not to stare. Tried not to let the saliva pooling in his mouth choke him. "You hungry?" Her voice startled him. He looked up. She stood 3 feet away now, holding half the sandwich wrapped in a paper napkin. Caleb shook his head. Fast. Too fast. His stomach growled loud enough to betray him. The girl smiled. Soft. Sad. "It's okay," she said. "I already ate." She pressed the napkin into his hands and walked back inside before he could say a word. Caleb stared at the sandwich. Then he devoured it. Every crumb. The next day, Caleb came back. He told himself he wouldn't. Told himself it was a one-time thing. Told himself she probably wouldn't even remember him. But at 3:47 p.m., he was standing in the same alley. And at 3:52 p.m., she walked out. This time, she didn't ask. She just handed him half her sandwich, sat down on the step, and ate her half in silence. Her name was Imani Brooks. He learned that a week later, when her aunt yelled it from inside the diner. "Imani! Get back in here, child. These dishes won't wash themselves." Imani wiped her hands on her apron and stood. Before she left, she looked back at Caleb. "See you tomorrow?" she asked. He nodded. She smiled. It went on like that for 6 months. Every single day. Rain or shine. Imani split her lunch. Sometimes it was a sandwich. Sometimes leftover jambalaya. Sometimes just crackers and a bruised apple. But she always gave half. Caleb noticed things. Her apron got looser. Her face got thinner. Her eyes started to look the way his did, tired, distant, older than they should. One afternoon, her aunt grabbed her by the arm. "Child, you're wasting away," the woman said, voice sharp with worry. "You barely eat. You barely talk. What's wrong with you?" Imani said nothing. Just pulled her arm free and went back to washing dishes. Caleb heard it all from the alley. And that night, for the first time in months, he couldn't sleep. Because he understood something terrible. She wasn't just sharing her food. She was starving herself. For him. What Caleb didn't know was that Imani's aunt was 2 months behind on rent. The diner was failing. And the only reason Imani had food at all was because her aunt let her work, off the books, unpaid, in exchange for 1 meal a day. 1 meal. And Imani was splitting it. Every single day. If you've ever met someone who gave when they had nothing, you know this feeling. If you haven't, keep watching. Because what happens next will break you. It was raining the day everything changed. Not a soft drizzle. A Louisiana downpour. The kind that turned alleys into rivers and made the sky forget what blue looked like. Caleb stood under the diner's rusted awning, soaked through, shivering. He hadn't eaten breakfast or dinner the night before. His vision blurred at the edges. The back door opened. Imani stepped out, no umbrella, no jacket, just her apron and that blue ribbon holding her braids in place. She held out half a biscuit. Caleb took it. But this time, he didn't eat. He just stared at her. "Why do you do this?" he asked. His voice cracked. He sounded smaller than he wanted to. Imani tilted her head, rainwater dripping from her nose. "Do what?" "This." He held up the biscuit. "You don't even know me." She shrugged. "I know you're hungry. So are you." She looked away. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Caleb noticed something. The ribbon in her hair, the one she wore every single day, was fraying. The blue had faded to almost gray. One end was starting to unravel. "That's pretty," he said quietly. Imani touched it, almost shy. "It was my mama's." "Where is she?" "Gone." Caleb didn't ask more. He knew what gone meant. Imani untied the ribbon slowly. Her braids fell loose around her shoulders. She held it out to him. "Here." Caleb stepped back. "I can't take that." "You didn't take it. I'm giving it." "But it's your mom's." Imani's eyes filled with something Caleb couldn't name. Something big. Something that made his chest hurt. "So you don't forget me," she said. The words hit him like thunder. Forget her? How could he ever forget her? He took the ribbon with shaking hands. And then, without thinking, without planning, the words just spilled out. "When I'm rich," Caleb said, voice trembling, "I'll come back. I'll marry you." Imani blinked. Then she laughed. It wasn't a mean laugh. It was soft. Sad. The kind of laugh that knew better but wanted to believe anyway. "Okay," she whispered. "I'm serious." "I know. I mean it, Imani." She looked at him for a long moment. Rain ran down both their faces. "Then don't forget," she said. That night, Child Protective Services came. Someone had reported him. A teacher. A neighbor. It didn't matter who. 2 women in dark jackets knocked on the apartment door. When no one answered, they let themselves in. Caleb was asleep on the floor, the blue ribbon wrapped around his wrist. They woke him gently. "Where's your mother, sweetheart?" He didn't answer. They asked again. He stayed silent. By morning, he was gone. Imani waited behind the diner the next day. And the day after that. And the day after that. 3 weeks passed. Then 4. Her aunt found her crying in the alley one evening, still holding half a sandwich she'd saved. "Who you waiting on, baby?" Imani didn't answer. She just wrapped the sandwich back up. And walked inside. Caleb never got to say goodbye. He never got to explain. And for 22 years, he would carry that guilt like a stone in his chest. But what he didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that the ribbon would survive. Through foster homes. Through cold nights. Through every attempt to forget. It would survive. And one day, it would lead him back. Have you ever made a promise you didn't think you'd be able to keep? Drop a comment. Tell us. Because this story doesn't end the way you think. 22 years later, the first foster home smelled like cigarettes and wet dog. Caleb lasted 3 months. The second home was worse. The third, he stopped counting. He learned to stay quiet. Stay small. Stay unnoticed. But at night, when the other kids were asleep, Caleb would pull out the blue ribbon and wrap it around his fingers. He'd whisper the promise he made. Asterisk, when I'm rich, I'll come back. That asterisk, it was the only thing that felt real. By 12, Caleb discovered something. Numbers made sense. People didn't. The world didn't. But numbers? Numbers followed rules. He started staying late at the public library, teaching himself algebra, then calculus, then code. By 16, he was sneaking into community college classes. By 19, he'd built his first algorithm, a pattern recognition system that could predict stock movements based on social sentiment. It wasn't perfect. But it worked. A small venture capital firm noticed. Offered him $20,000 for the code. Caleb took it. And kept building. At 24, he launched his first company from a one-bedroom apartment in Oakland. No co-founders. No investors. Just him, a borrowed laptop, and a trading bot that could outthink Wall Street analysts. By 28, he sold that company for $340 million. By 31, his net worth crossed $1 billion. Caleb Rowe was officially a self-made billionaire. He bought a penthouse in San Francisco. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A view of the Bay Bridge that people paid millions just to photograph. But at night, when the city glowed beneath him, Caleb felt nothing. No pride. No peace. Just silence. And the blue ribbon, locked in his desk drawer. 3 months after Caleb disappeared, Imani's aunt died. Heart attack. Sudden. Quiet. The diner closed. Imani was sent to live with her grandmother in Shreveport. Then an uncle in Monroe. Then a cousin in Atlanta. She never stayed anywhere long enough to call it home. School became a blur. She graduated high school by sheer will, enrolled in community college with a partial scholarship. But halfway through her first semester, her cousin lost his job. Imani had to choose, tuition or rent. She chose rent. She dropped out. Got a job cleaning office buildings at night. It paid $11 an hour. No benefits. No future. But it was something. By 29, Imani was a night custodian at a downtown Atlanta tech building. She worked alone. Vacuumed empty conference rooms. Wiped down glass walls that reflected a city she'd never be part of. She was invisible again. Just like she'd been as a child. Except now, no one was waiting for her in the alley. No one needed her. No one remembered. Some nights, she'd sit in the break room during her 30-minute lunch, eating gas station sandwiches, and she'd think about the boy. The white boy with the sad eyes who never told her his name. She wondered if he remembered. Probably not. He was probably dead. Or in jail. Or living some other hard life far away from Baton Rouge. The promise? That was just kid stuff. A fantasy. She didn't even have the ribbon anymore. Lost it years ago during one of the moves. So why did she still think about it? Why did it still hurt? What neither of them knew was that they'd been in the same city for 6 months. Caleb had invested in the building where Imani worked. He'd walked past her twice. Once in the lobby. Once in a hallway. Both times, she'd had her head down, pushing a cleaning cart. Both times, he'd been on his phone, distracted. They were 15 feet apart. And a lifetime away. If you think this is just about two people missing each other, you're wrong. This is about what happens when the world tries to erase kindness. Stay with us. The collision is coming. Caleb's therapist told him to let it go. You were 9, Dr. Feldman said. You can't carry guilt for something you had no control over. Caleb sat in the leather chair, staring out the window. I made a promise. You were a child. She saved my life. And you survived. That's enough. Caleb didn't respond. Because it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. He started small. Hired a private investigator in Baton Rouge. Gave him 3 details. Mason Street Diner, a black girl, around 8 years old in 2002, a blue ribbon. The investigator came back 2 weeks later. Diner's been closed since 2003. Owner died. No records. No forwarding addresses. Keep looking. Mr. Rowe, it's been over 20 years. Keep looking. He hired 5 more investigators. Then 10. He offered a $50,000 reward for information leading to her identity. Nothing. He funded facial recognition scans of old-school photos across 3 parishes. Dead ends. He hired genealogists. Data analysts. Skip tracers. Years passed. Millions spent. And still, nothing. One night, Caleb stood in his penthouse, staring at the San Francisco skyline. The city sparkled beneath him. Beautiful. Cold. Indifferent. He opened his desk drawer. Pulled out the blue ribbon. It was barely holding together now. The fabric worn thin. The color almost gone. He pressed it to his forehead and closed his eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry. His assistant found him like that an hour later. Sir? Your 8 a.m. is here. Caleb didn't move. Cancel it. Sir, it's the board meeting, cancel everything. She hesitated. Are you okay? Caleb looked at her. His eyes were red. No, he said quietly. I'm not. He started funding food programs. Anonymously. Free lunch programs in Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Shreveport. He didn't attach his name. Didn't want credit. He just wanted to make sure no other kid went hungry the way he had. No other little girl starved herself to save someone else. But even that didn't fill the hole. Because it wasn't about feeding thousands. It was about finding one. The one who fed him first. 3 months ago, Caleb made a decision. He was going to visit every building his company owned. Personally. Unannounced. Maybe she worked in one of them. Maybe she lived nearby. Maybe someone knew her. It was a long shot. But he was out of options. And on a cold Tuesday in November, in Atlanta, Georgia, Caleb Rowe stepped into an elevator in one of his buildings. The doors closed. The elevator jolted. The lights flickered. And when he looked down, he saw a woman kneeling on the floor. Cleaning. She looked up. Their eyes met. And everything stopped. You think you know what happens next. You don't. Because the truth he's about to learn will shatter everything. Don't click away. This is where the story really begins. Atlanta, Georgia, November 2024. The elevator lurched. Caleb grabbed the railing as the lights flickered once, twice, then settled into a dim emergency glow. The car had stopped between floors. He reached for his phone. No signal. Of course. He pressed the emergency button. A crackling voice came through the speaker. Sir, we're experiencing a temporary malfunction. Maintenance is on the way. Should be about 15 minutes. Caleb sighed and leaned against the wall. That's when he noticed her. A woman kneeling in the corner, wearing a gray custodial uniform. She had a spray bottle in one hand and a cloth in the other. She'd been wiping down the elevator panels when it stopped. She looked up. Their eyes met. Caleb felt something shift in his chest. Something he couldn't name. She was black. Maybe late 20s, early 30s. Tired eyes. Hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. There was something familiar about her face. But he couldn't place it. Sorry, she said quietly, standing up. I'll stay out of your way. She moved to the opposite corner, head down. Caleb watched her for a moment, then looked away. His phone buzzed. Still no signal, but the screen lit up. He checked his calendar. Back-to-back meetings for the next 6 hours. He felt exhausted just looking at it. The phone slipped from his hand. It clattered onto the elevator floor, sliding across the polished surface. The woman bent down and picked it up before he could move. Here, she said, holding it out. Caleb reached for it. Their fingers brushed. And that's when she saw it. The bracelet on his wrist. A thin strip of faded blue fabric, frayed at the edges, barely holding together. Her breath caught. She stared at it. Then at him. Her hand started shaking. No way, she whispered. Caleb frowned. Excuse me? She didn't answer. Just kept staring at the ribbon. Where did you get that? She asked, voice barely audible. Caleb looked down at his wrist. He'd worn it so long he barely noticed it anymore. It was a gift, he said carefully. A long time ago. How long? 22 years. The woman's eyes filled with tears. She pressed a hand to her mouth. Baton Rouge, she whispered. Caleb's heart stopped. What did you say? Baton Rouge. Mason Street Diner. The air left his lungs. He stared at her. Really looked at her. The shape of her eyes. The curve of her jaw. And suddenly he saw it. The 8-year-old girl with the blue ribbon in her hair. The girl who split her sandwich every day. The girl who gave him the only thing she had left of her mother. Imani, he breathed. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. You remembered, she said, her voice breaking. Caleb couldn't speak. Couldn't move. 22 years. 5 investigators. Millions of dollars. Hundreds of dead ends. And she'd been here the whole time. Cleaning his building. Invisible. I looked for you, Caleb said, his voice shaking. I looked everywhere. Imani wiped her face with the back of her hand. I waited for you, she said. Every day. For months. They took me. Child services. I didn't have a choice. I know. I never forgot you. She looked at the ribbon on his wrist. You kept it. It was all I had. Silence filled the elevator. Not the awkward kind. The kind that holds 22 years of grief, hope, and questions too big to ask. Finally, Imani spoke. You said you'd come back when you were rich. Caleb's throat tightened. I meant it. Are you? She asked quietly. Rich? He hesitated. Then nodded. Imani looked around the elevator. At his tailored suit. His expensive watch. The phone in his hand worth more than she made in 3 months. So you came back, she said. I never stopped trying. She searched his face, looking for something. Proof. Truth. The boy she remembered. Why? She asked. Caleb's eyes filled with tears. Because you saved my life, Imani. And I owed you everything. The elevator jolted back to life. The lights flickered on. A cheerful ding announced they'd reached the ground floor. The doors slid open. Neither of them moved. A maintenance worker poked his head in. You folks okay? Caleb didn't look away from Imani. Can you give us a minute? He said. The worker shrugged and stepped back. The doors closed again. I don't even know your name, Imani said softly. Caleb. Caleb Rowe. She repeated it, like she was testing how it felt. Caleb. I tried to find you. I hired investigators. I searched records. I put up rewards. I moved around a lot. After my aunt died. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. It feels like it is. Imani shook her head. You were 9 years old, Caleb. You didn't ask to be taken away. But I promised, you were a kid. So were you. And you gave me everything. She looked down at her hands. I gave you half a sandwich. You gave me hope. The elevator doors opened again. This time, Caleb stepped forward and held them. Can I take you to dinner? He asked. Imani looked at him. At this stranger who wasn't a stranger. This billionaire who used to be a hungry boy. I'm still on shift, she said. I own the building. You're off shift. She blinked. You own this building? I own 12 buildings in this city. This is one of them. Imani stared. You really did get rich. Caleb's expression softened. Yeah. But it didn't mean anything. Not until right now. Have you ever found something you thought you lost forever? Comment below. Because what happens next will make you question everything you thought you knew about second chances. They sat in a small French restaurant 3 blocks from the building. Caleb had offered to take her somewhere fancier, but Imani refused. I'm wearing a custodian uniform, she'd said. Let's keep it simple. So they sat in a corner booth, away from the windows, and for the first time in 22 years, they talked. What happened after they took you? Imani asked. Caleb stared at his water glass. Foster care. 7 different homes in 4 years. That's awful. Some were okay. Most weren't. Did you ever find your mom? Caleb shook his head. No. I stopped looking after a while. I'm sorry. It's fine. I made peace with it. Liar, a voice in his head whispered. But he ignored it. Imani told him about her aunt's death. The moves. Dropping out of college. The jobs that barely paid rent. Caleb listened, his jaw tightening with every sentence. You should have had more, he said. So should you. But I do now. And you're still, he stopped himself. Imani finished the sentence. Cleaning floors? I didn't mean it like that. It's okay. It's true. She looked out the window. I used to think I'd do something big, you know? Be someone. But life just happened. And I got tired of fighting it. Caleb's chest ached. You are someone, Imani. You're the person who saved me. That was a long time ago. It still counts. The waiter brought their food. Imani stared at the plate like it was something foreign. I haven't eaten in a place like this in, maybe ever, she admitted. Caleb watched her take the first bite. And in that moment, he made a decision. There's something I need to tell you, he said. Imani looked up. Okay. Caleb took a breath. The reason I got rich, it wasn't just luck. Okay, my father. Before he died. He hid money. A lot of money. Imani frowned. What do you mean, hid? He was involved in something. I don't know all the details. But when he was killed, his assets were frozen. Hidden. Buried in shell companies. Killed. Caleb nodded. When I was 7. Caleb, when I turned 18, a lawyer found me. Told me I was the sole heir. But the money was locked up. Tangled in legal battles. Offshore accounts. It took years to access it. Imani set down her fork. So you didn't earn it? Not all of it. Some I did. I built companies. Sold them. But the foundation, that came from my father. Why are you telling me this? Caleb looked at her. Because I don't want you to think I'm some self-made hero. I'm not. I had help. I had money I didn't earn. And if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have survived long enough to get any of it. Imani was quiet for a long time. Does it matter where it came from? She finally asked. Doesn't it? I don't know. You're still the boy I gave a sandwich to. Money doesn't change that. Caleb's throat tightened. You don't hate me? Why would I hate you? Because I had all this, and you had nothing. Imani shook her head. That's not your fault, Caleb. It feels like it is. Well, it's not. She reached across the table. Placed her hand over his. You came back, she said softly. That's what matters. Caleb looked at their hands. And for the first time in years, he felt something other than guilt. He felt hope. But there was one question he was afraid to ask. One question that had haunted him since the elevator. Imani. Yeah. Do you? He hesitated. Do you remember what I said? Before I left. Her expression shifted. You mean the promise? Caleb nodded. Imani pulled her hand back slowly. Yeah, she said quietly. I remember. Would you have kept a promise you made when you were 9 years old? Tell us in the comments. Because what Imani says next will change everything. They left the restaurant just after 9. Caleb offered to drive her home. Imani hesitated, then agreed. His car was parked in a private garage beneath the building. A black Mercedes. Sleek. Quiet. The kind of car that cost more than most people's houses. Imani slid into the passenger seat and felt the leather mold to her body. This is nice, she said. Caleb started the engine. It's just a car. Not to me. He didn't respond. They drove in silence for a few minutes. Where do you live? Caleb asked. Imani gave him an address in East Atlanta. He entered it into the GPS 23 minutes away. You've been working night shifts this whole time? He asked. Yeah. 6 days a week. That's brutal. It pays the bills. Barely, she thought. But didn't say. Caleb's hands tightened on the wheel. Imani. Yeah. I want to help. She looked at him. Help how? Money. A job. Whatever you need. Caleb, please. Let me do this. Imani shook her head. I don't want your money. Why not? Because that's not why I gave you food. I know that. But you shouldn't be struggling. Not after what you did for me. What I did for you was because you were hungry. Not because I wanted something in return. I know, then stop trying to pay me back. Caleb's jaw clenched. So you'd rather keep cleaning floors? Imani's eyes flashed. Yes. He stared at her. Why? Because I earned that job, Caleb. It's mine. I didn't get it because some billionaire felt guilty. That's not what this is. Isn't it? They sat at a red light. The silence was heavy now. Caleb finally spoke. I want to marry you. Imani's head snapped toward him. What? I made a promise. I meant it then. I mean it now. Caleb, we just met. We met 22 years ago. We were kids. So you don't owe me a marriage. It's not about owing, then what is it about? Caleb pulled over, turned off the car, looked at her. It's about the fact that you're the only person who ever saw me. Not my money. Not my success. Just me. The hungry kid who had nothing. Imani's eyes filled with tears. That's not enough, Caleb. What do you mean? She took a shaky breath. You came back rich. And that's great. I'm happy for you. But I need to know something. What? Would you have come back if you were still poor? The question hung in the air like smoke. Caleb opened his mouth. Then closed it. Because he didn't know the answer. And Imani saw it on his face. That's what I thought, she said quietly. She opened the door. Imani, wait, thank you for dinner, Caleb. It was good to see you. Please don't go. She paused. Looked back at him. You kept the ribbon because it reminded you of a debt. Not because you missed me. That's not true. Then tell me you would have come back poor. Caleb stared at her. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to mean it. But the truth was, he didn't know. And that truth was written all over his face. Imani stepped out of the car. Goodbye, Caleb. She closed the door. And walked away. Caleb sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, watching her disappear into the night. He'd spent 22 years searching for her. And in one conversation, he'd lost her all over again. But what Caleb didn't know was that Imani was right. He hadn't come back for her. He'd come back to clear his conscience. And until he faced that truth, nothing would change. Was Imani right to walk away? Or did she just throw away her only chance? Comment below. We want to hear from you. Because the final chapter will show you what real love actually looks like. Caleb didn't chase her. Not that night. Not the next day. Not the next week. He wanted to. God, he wanted to. But every time he picked up the phone, he remembered her question. Asterisk, would you have come back if you were still poor? Asterisk, and he still didn't have an answer. So instead, he did something else. He built something. Not for her. Not to win her back. But because she was right. And he needed to prove it, to himself more than anyone. 3 months later, the Ribbon Project launched. It wasn't flashy. No press releases. No grand announcements. Just a quiet network of community kitchens across Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Shreveport, and Atlanta. Free meals. No questions asked. No names required. Every location had the same sign out front. Asterisk asterisk, you don't have to be hungry alone. Asterisk asterisk, Caleb funded it entirely. Anonymously. He didn't attend the openings. Didn't take credit. Didn't even tell his board. He just built it. And let it exist. Imani heard about it from a coworker. They opened a new place on Mason Street, the woman said. Free food for anyone who needs it. No paperwork. No judgment. Imani's chest tightened. Mason Street? Yeah. In Baton Rouge. Isn't that where you're from? Imani nodded slowly. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the location. About the name. About the boy who promised to come back. 2 weeks later, she took a bus to Baton Rouge. She hadn't been back in over a decade. The city looked different. Smaller. Sadder. But Mason Street looked exactly the same. Except now, where the old diner used to be, there was a new building. Bright. Clean. Warm. A line of people stretched around the block. Families. Elderly folks. Kids in school uniforms. All waiting for a meal. Imani walked to the front. A volunteer smiled at her. You here to eat or help? I don't know. The woman handed her an apron. We can always use help. Imani worked the lunch shift. She served plates. Wiped tables. Listened to stories. An older man told her he hadn't eaten in 2 days. A mother thanked her through tears, holding her daughter's hand. A little boy asked if he could take extra rolls home for his sister. Of course, Imani said, her voice breaking. She wrapped them in a napkin. Just like she used to. At the end of the shift, the volunteer approached her. "You're good at this," she said. "Thanks. You should come back." "Maybe I will." The woman smiled. "By the way, the founder wanted me to give you this. If you ever showed up." She handed Imani a small envelope. Imani frowned. "What do you mean, if I showed up?" He said someone might come. Someone who used to work at the old diner. Someone who wore a blue ribbon. Imani's hands started shaking. She opened the envelope. Inside was a note. Imani, I don't know if you'll ever see this but if you do, I want you to know you were right I came back because I felt guilty. Not because I missed you. Not because I loved you because I didn't even know you I knew the idea of you. The memory. The girl who saved me but I didn't know the woman you became I'm sorry this place isn't to win you back. It's to honor what you taught me that kindness doesn't need a reward that giving matters, even when no one's watching I don't know if I would have come back poor but I know I should have and I'm spending the rest of my life trying to be the kind of man who would Caleb Imani read it 3 times. Then folded it carefully. And slipped it into her pocket. She came back the next week. And the week after that. She started volunteering every Saturday. Then Sundays too. She never asked about Caleb. Never tried to find him. She just showed up. And did the work. 6 months later, on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, a little boy stood outside the kitchen. He was maybe 8. Skinny. Quiet. His shirt was too big. His shoes had holes. He didn't ask for food. He just stood there. Watching. Imani recognized the look. She'd seen it before. In a mirror. In a memory. In a hungry boy from 22 years ago. She walked outside. Knelt down. "You hungry?" she asked. The boy nodded. Imani went back inside. Made him a sandwich. Wrapped it in a napkin. Came back out and handed it to him. "You don't have to stand out here," she said gently. "You can come inside." The boy looked at the sandwich. Then at her. "Thank you," he whispered. Imani smiled. "Anytime." She turned to go back inside. And froze. Standing in the doorway was Caleb. He wasn't wearing a suit. Just jeans and a t-shirt. He had flour on his hands. "You've been here the whole time?" Imani asked. Caleb nodded. "Every day. In the kitchen." "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because this isn't about me. It's about them." He nodded toward the line of people waiting to eat. Imani stared at him. And for the first time, she saw him. Not the billionaire. Not the promise. Just Caleb. The boy who survived. The man who came back. The person who finally understood. "I still don't have an answer," Caleb said quietly. "To your question. I know. But I'm trying to become the kind of person who would." Imani's eyes filled with tears. "That's enough," she said. Caleb pulled something from his pocket. A new ribbon. Blue. Bright. Unbroken. "This one's for you," he said. "If you want it." Imani took it. And for the first time in 22 years, she tied it in her hair. They didn't get married that day. Or that year. They didn't need to. Because the promise wasn't about marriage. It was about showing up. About remembering. About turning pain into purpose. And they did that. Every single day. Together. Kindness doesn't disappear. It waits. It grows. It becomes something bigger than the people who started it. If this story reminded you why goodness still matters, subscribe. Because the world needs more stories like this. And if you've ever been the hungry kid, or the one who shared their lunch, comment below. Tell us your story. Because it matters. You matter. And we're listening.